I'm Michelle from PwC. So I work at PwC as a consultant. I've been there for about 18 months. I've been working with Salesforce for about 5 years. I've got a few certifications, application architect, and all the things that come with that. And I'm currently in the process of getting the other one, system architect, is it? Yeah, system architect. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about Chatter behind the scenes. And the reason why I've chosen this topic is because recently I've been involved in 2 different projects. One was a Salesforce to Salesforce data migration, where we were asked to migrate Chatter data, where I realized that migrating Chatter data is not as straightforward as you might think it is. And the other one was where I was asked to do some automation on Chatter. In particular, to respond to someone's Chatter post with an automated reply, so like a chat bot, like the Einstein bot for Chatter, basically. And in both scenarios, I found that the data model that is used for Chatter is not as easy as it probably could have been. And there are some things that you need to think about when you do either of these things. So we're going to have a closer look at these 2 things. So first of all, let's start with the data model. So everyone who has worked with Chatter before knows probably that the main object is the feed item object. So if you create a Chatter post, it will create a record in the feed item object. Unfortunately, that's not all there is to it. As you can see, the data model is quite a bit more complex than that. So in the middle, we've got the feed items, and that's a big box because it's not just feed item. Once you turn on the tracked changes option, which means Chatter posts will be created for certain fields that are changed, that will also create the record feed. So it will create an account feed object, an opportunity feed, etc. So you have a feed object for every object that uses Chatter, basically. Then there at the top, we have the collaboration invitation object, which is the Chatter group invite. So if you create an invitation for someone to join a Chatter group, it will create a record there. And of course, there's a link there with the user and with the group. Then here at the left side, we've got, can everyone see this data model, or should I make? No. Right, Richard showed me how to do this.
It scrolls though.
No, but I can move it across like this. Right, so I hope it's a bit clearer now. But so on the left here, we've got topic and topic assignment. So the topics are what you probably know as the hashtags. So if you do a hashtag in a Chatter post, it will create a topic, and then that topic gets assigned to that post, which is the feed item. So then it will create data and topic assignment. Then I already briefly mentioned the feed track change. So that's the object that is used to track the changes from certain fields on that object. So it will create data there, like the owner changed from this value to that value. So that's the type of data that's stored in there. Then here on the right-hand side, we've got feed comment. So if I put a comment to a Chatter post, it doesn't create another feed item, it creates a feed comment. And then we've got feed likes here as well. As you can see, feed likes is only linked to feed items because this is the only likes that are available for through the API. So likes to feed comments, we cannot access it, unfortunately. And then we've got the feed attachments. So this would be a content post. If you add a file to Chatter, to your Chatter post, then it will create that link to the file, which is the content documents and the content version. So it creates data in the feed attachment. Then here on the bottom, we've got the entity subscription, which is the follow functionality. So if I follow a Chatter post, it will create an entry in there. And then here on the bottom, we've got the collaboration groups, which are the Chatter groups. So the collaboration group itself is the chatter group. And then we've got the members, which is the members of that group. Of course, that's linked to the user. And you can also create a request to join a group, which creates this collaboration group member request. Right, so that's the chatter data model. Now, to create or edit data, chatter data, we've got a variety of tools available. So I've just listed the most common ones here. So first of all, you first just normally start by trying to do it with config. So you could create workflows, process builder, visual flows to create or edit chatter data. There are some limitations. The @mentions can be a bit tricky. Everyone who's tried to migrate a process builder from one environment to another might have seen this problem where when you do an @mention, it actually stores it as an ID in the process builder. So then when you deploy it with a change set or whatever, it will still have the ID from the other sandbox. So it will sort of break the @mention that way. Also, if you use config, you cannot set the author for a chatter post. So if you want to auto-reply to someone's chatter post, you don't want that reply to come from the user who creates the initial post, but that will be the running user. So yeah, it's a bit tricky that way. You can't set the created by through the config. Then if you do a data migration, then you will probably use a data migration tool like Data Loader or an ETL tool like MuleSoft or Talent. Again, there's quite a lot of limitations with that. The @mentions, as far as I know, are not really supported. And also there's quite a few limitations on the types of posts that are supported. So track changes cannot be migrated as is. Also things like polls are not really easy to migrate. And as I said before, likes can only be retrieved and created from the feed item likes, not the comments. Then we've got the REST API, so that could be used for an integration to create or retrieve chatter data. Yeah, one of the limitations there is also that we cannot set the author if we create a chat post through the API. So we cannot set the created by field. Then we can use Apex using a normal object DML. So we can just create a feed item and then insert it, because then we can set the created by field, which is good. Unfortunately, @mentions don't work when you use the normal object DML. But what we can use in Apex is something called the ConnectAPI, which is a set of Apex classes that Salesforce has defined that you can call to do various things like create or retrieve posts or edit posts. We'll have a closer look at that later. So if you're doing a chatter data migration, there are a few things to keep in mind. So the first one is the types of posts that you can migrate is quite limited. So the only types that are allowed to insert through a SOAP API, through a data loader, are content posts, link posts, and text posts. So track changes, you can't just take them out and put them back in. So in the data migration that I did recently, the client says this is not acceptable for us. We insist on having those track changes. So what we did in the end was we took them out of one of the orgs so you can take them out using a ETL tool or data loader. And what we then did was convert them all to a text post. So you get the old value, get the new value from the feed track change object, and then you sort of concatenate that into a string, and then you insert the feed item as a text post. So just I'm not going to go into detail. You probably can't see it anyway. This is the talent job that does that. So I'll just leave it at that. Then, as I said before, the likes, you can only retrieve the likes for feed items. So the feed comment likes, you can't really get to them. And then then content posts. You need to keep in mind that if you migrate the content post, you need to also migrate the file separately. So you retrieve the content post, that's just the text basically, and the link to the file. Then you need to migrate the file, create the new content version, and then link to that in your content post to make sure it works when you migrate it. And as I said, at mentions don't really work. So in my scenario, we basically told the customer we're not going to do at mentions. We'll just do at and then the name of the person, and it won't be a link, but you will still be able to see who it was.
Can't you, if you use talent and have that complexity, couldn't you derive the ID of the user? The same problem exists when you migrate related records, right? The IDs are not, you have to translate them.
Yeah, but we couldn't insert it with the add mentions working, even with the new ID. It didn't work through when using the SOAP API. Maybe I missed a trick, but we couldn't get it to work. In the end, we just told them that we can't, because we didn't want to use code. So it would have obviously been possible by inserting it and then retrieving it with the ConnectAPI and updating it. But it would mean creating additional code to run on the data afterwards. So then the other example is an auto-reply to a chatter post. So I explained this scenario earlier. So I'm posting to chatter, I need help with something, and I want like a service user to do an automated reply saying, okay, you can go here and here for help. So there are a few challenges with that scenario, that normally the user who creates the initial post will also trigger any automation that triggers off that post. So if I create a process builder, then that it will look like I'm replying to myself, which is not what we want really. So this means we can't really use config to implement this, so we would need to use Apex. Also, if we want to use rich text in our post, that's not really supported with Process Builder. So then using Apex, the normal object DML, the at mentions are not supported, but we can use the ConnectAPI, and that does support at mentions, but does not allow us to set the created by. So let's first have a closer look at what the ConnectAPI really is. I realize you probably can't read anything here, so I'm going to try and make it bigger. So what is the ConnectAPI? The ConnectAPI is not an API like the REST or a SOAP API. It's not something you use in an integration. It's basically a set of classes that are predefined by Salesforce that you can use to edit or create chatter data. So as an example, I might have to go through this line by line. The code that you see here, all that does is it creates one feed item. So just to go through it, it creates a new feed item input here in the first line. Then what it then does is it's going to construct the message. So the message consists of message segments, and a message segment can be, for example, an at mention, which would be a mentioned segment input. Or it can be just a string, a piece of text, which would be a text segment input. So we're creating all our elements here. Then what we do is assigning what we want to put in our post. So in this bit, we're doing an add mention. So obviously we need the ID of the person that needs to be add mentioned. We add that to our message body. Then we do the rest of our feed item message. So this is just a string. We add it all to our message body, and then we set that to our feed item body. Then we tell it where to post the chatter message, where to post the feed item. So if it's me, it will just post it on that user's standard chatter feed. And then finally, we post the feed element. So we input it. So that's quite a lot of code to just create one chatter post. So obviously Salesforce also thought that is quite a lot of code for one chatter post. So what they've done, they haven't made the ConnectAPI any better, but what they've done is create a GitHub package called the ConnectAPI helper. And this is a GitHub package which is basically one class. You can see it here. Well, obviously a class and a test class called the ConnectAPI helper. And it basically does all the things that you saw on the last slide. It will just do it all for you. And what you can then do is do the exact same thing what I showed you on the last slide with one line of code, where you call your ConnectAPI helper class, you call the post feed item with mentions method, and then you just pass in where you want the posts, what the text is, and an app mention just goes through inside the squiggly brackets, and that's it. So that could make your life a lot easier if you're doing a lot of automation on chatter. So to go back to our example, what we want to accomplish is something like this. So someone posts on chatter saying, I need help, or any other thing that you want to trigger. And we want an automated reply from a standard user, in this case an agent, saying, with an app mention, saying, please go there for help. So the way we're implementing it is as follows. We create our message, which is just a string with the app mention in it. Again, we use the squiggly brackets. First, we just create it as a normal feed item. So we construct our feed item here, and we insert it with normal DML. That's all fine, but the app mention won't work because it's not supported by the DML. So what we then need to do is retrieve that same feed item with the ConnectAPI. So here we retrieve it again. We then set the message body input to our string that we created earlier, that we created here, the message string. So we just add that to the message segment. And then what we do is we update it using the ConnectAPI. And that's it. So now we have inserted a chatter post authored by any user you want with the app mention working. If you're interested in this piece of code, there's actually someone who wrote a blog on it and who created a GitHub package for this functionality, which allows you to call it from a process builder. So he wrote it as an invocable Apex class, where you can set all your parameters like the author, the message, in process builder. So it makes it a lot easier. The guy who did it is Douglas Ayers. You probably know him. He's quite a well-known Salesforce blogger. So if you're interested in this code, it's a bit more advanced than this. This is just the basic how it works. Go to his blog and you can install the GitHub package. So conclusion, so there's quite a few tools available to use with chatter, but the data model is not that straightforward. So there's quite a few limitations with any of the tools that you use. So for some scenarios, you will need to use more than one tool. And there's a few GitHub packages available that can make your life a lot easier. So don't reinvent the wheel. That's it. Are there any questions? Richard?
The network ID on that ConnectAPI, what is that network ID?
So that's the community. So you don't actually have to use it. It depends on what community.
So you could use that for cross-community posting as well.
Yeah.
But you can't go across org.
No, you can't go across org. Yeah.
At the risk of talking heresy, are there better tools?
For Chatter, I don't think. Well, I know you mentioned another tool that you use at Provo. Is that?
Slack.
Oh. Oh, you.
I'm going to do a talk on Slack invocable Slack messages.
I don't. As far as I know, there are no other tools that do everything with Chatter now.
No. There are a few things on the App Exchange that I've worked on previously to do this problem for multi-org chatter and community posting and everything else. We had all these same problems and people started using us, and where I work now to do chatter data migration, some things you can only do through UI.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. So comment likes is a great one. It's like,
Yeah.
but where is it? But it works. But
Yeah.
it must be in the data model somewhere.
Yeah, but they don't tell you. No, they just say you can't access it. Yeah.
Any other talk? Any other questions?
Ben?
Is there any sort of noise from Salesforce about getting rid of some of these limitations and making it usable?
No, well, they came with the GitHub package, which the ConnectAPI helper. I don't know of any other coming updates on Chatter. No, because it would probably mean a data model change, which they're not going to do, I think.
I haven't seen a chatter change in a few releases now.
Aren't they going to buy Slack soon?
Probably.
20 billion.
So.
All the 200 million billion, I think. Something like that.
The talent job that you wrote, is that sort of reusable by other people? Or
If you hire people, you see.
that's a migration to do.
Nice license fee.
It is created as quite a generic job, because the way we set it up was we didn't just retrieve data from Salesforce. We put all the data into a MS SQL database first and then retrieved it from there. So yes, it would be reusable. We can talk after this.
What would you recommend if you have cross-org?
To use Richard's tool, probably.
If it still exists passport.
Well, you
it still
can.
works.
I think you might want to start with the Chatter REST API in that case. That for me, that would be the most logical place to start.
But the last time I looked at the help documentation, which was 3 years ago, it did say,
Did it? Wow.
took them.
I don't even know the product's still there, so. No one wants to pay for it. Everyone expects it to work and be easy. But no one wants to pay for it. And that was on the App Exchange, that one. On Rev Share.
So one clear limitation is the at the rate is the one which
The
you can't
@mention.
really take those IDs.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because the way it's stored is by the ID, even in the process builder. I think that's a big limitation.
Yeah,
Even if you got that working, you wouldn't want the notifications to go out
yeah.
because they already know about it.
Yeah.
It's a data migration. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure
exactly.
that
So
it's
I think, not doing it as an official app mention, but transforming it into just an app with a name is probably, for data migration, I think is probably the best
Can you imagine
solution.
that weekly digest?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because a few weeks back we had a requirement specifically to have the cross-org, but specifically for let's say in the org A we have a group for sales group, and the org B we have service group. We want to share it, those posts.
Okay, so not as a
something like
one-off
that.
migration, but
Yeah.
like an integration.
Integration kind of thing.
Yeah, I would probably use a REST API, Chatter REST API.
Yeah, that's what. Okay.
As everyone else hates Sunday mornings when your phone starts beeping constantly. Yeah. There's a talk by, I think, Gemma and Chris Emmett and maybe Louise around configuring your notification settings. So if you don't know how to do those, I'd recommend doing that for your success and partner community groups. It's worth a prune once in a while.
14 trial, yes.
Yeah, every Sunday morning. Yeah, exactly.
Oh God. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.